For WeAreSC, I'm Lyndsey Lopes here with columnist Greg Katz and Erik McKinney. Let's talk about the offensive line. Erik, tell me a little bit about how that's working.
You know, I think that was probably outside of quarterback. Quarterback's in its own kind of planet in terms of the competition. But I think offensive line was maybe the position that was under the most scrutiny after last season coming into this spring. And with 3 spots that were open, I don't think it was any surprise to see how the starting lineup came out there in this spring. You had Austin Jackson at left tackle, Elijah Vera Tucker slid next to him at left guard. And then the one position I think maybe, is it Brett Nealon at center? Is it Justin Dietich at center? We saw Brett Nealon go at center, Andrew Voorhees at right guard, and then Jalen McKenzie slid in at right tackle. We saw him get a little bit of time last fall there too. Again, I don't think there was a ton of surprise with the starting 5. I was a little surprised. I can't remember any time when those guys were healthy, that wasn't the starting 5. We didn't see a lot of guys sort of flip in and maybe a different left guard get some time with the ones. That was the first unit. We saw the tackles miss some time a little bit. Andrew Voorhees got nicked up a little bit at one practice. But outside of that, that was the starting 5. And I thought from practice 1, I guess maybe practice 3, when they started throwing pads on and letting the defense really get after them. From that practice to the 15th practice, it was a different group. Toward the end of it, they could run, they could pass block, they were giving the quarterback a little bit of time. This is not finished. The offensive line, I don't think you're going into the fall thinking, this is absolutely one of the best offensive line groups in the Pac-12. I think they still have a lot of questions to answer, and we'll see how that happens at the fall. But I don't have any massive questions about, can any of the starting 5 play, or are they going to be able to gel? I really liked what we saw toward the end of spring. I liked what we saw from the offensive line. Finding that second group is going to be key because, again, what we saw during 15 practices in the spring, you didn't have all 5 guys at every single practice. So when you get to fall, most likely, you're not going to have all 5 guys at every single game. Finding some players who can step in and really fill in. We saw a couple guys, Liam Jimmins switched from defensive line, and he played right tackle, spent a little time at right guard. Jacob Daniels is at left guard. He's another converted defensive lineman. Some of these guys have got to be able to step up and be able to fill in when somebody goes down, and that's sort of a question that is still out there. Can that happen here at the end of spring?
All right, thank you, Erik. Greg, what do you think? Can that happen?
I actually feel better about the offensive line for 2 reasons. One, I think the scheme doesn't put as much pressure on them to try to, quarterback steps in the pocket and looks, 5-step, 7-step drop. So my feeling is the scheme is going to be the thing that's going to help this group the most. I think that the backups actually have a chance to be pretty productive. And I look at Liam Jimmins, who when we talked to Clay Helton on the last day of spring ball, he said that of all the position switches, somebody going from offense to defense or switching areas, that he thought that Jimmins was the number 1 player. Jimmins was a defensive lineman, so he's got a defensive mentality, which means aggressive, go after it. And I think he's going to see playing time. I talked with Tim Drevno, the offensive line coach, very high on Jimmins, says this was a great move for all concerned. I think overall, I think the team, you have to wonder how physical they can become. Even though this gives the appearance of a finesse offense, to be honest with you, there's no reason why when they run the ball they can't be real physical. I would suggest that they do become real physical because they're going to play teams like Notre Dame and Stanford and Utah, etc., that are going to challenge them, and they need to match that physicality. But I think I feel better about the offensive line right now, and when I combine the skill factor of the running backs, I combine the quarterback situation, I think it's possible we're going to be really surprised by the offensive line. But don't quote me on that because they have a lot to prove.
Thank you so much, Greg. For WeAreSC, I'm Lyndsey Lopes here with Greg Katz and Erik McKinney. You've been watching WeAreSC.com.